Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for another episode in our Join Cycling Masterclass series. This time an episode with a returning guest, Aike Visbeek, the performance manager at Intermarché Wanty, and it's goal-setting time. The whole UCI calendar of teams, men and women, November, October is when all the goals are set, so we thought no better time than to speak to Aike about how does a World Tour team set goals for different riders, the staff, for the team as a whole? How do you, when Biniam Girmay has a disappointment crashing in the Giro 2024, do you get him back and focused for the Tour de France, where he obviously had huge success winning stages in the green jersey? So we'll talk about, should you need goals as an amateur rider? How do you set those goals? Are they supposed to be achievable, stretch goals, and a huge discussion about things that maybe you never set goals for before in terms of lifestyle and performance behavior. Certainly new things for me as well. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Really insightful stuff from Aike, and make sure to leave any comments or further questions down below. Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast here with Aike Visbeek. He's braved the snowstorm. We saw they even sent proof of images. He's braving the snow to, where are you now? Is it a dressage facility in Sweden somewhere?
It's a breeding facility for jumping horses. And this is the Hall of Fame to my left here.
Only horses, right? You're not breeding any top cyclists there? Okay. Just to...
That's right. It's strategical work on the cyclist part is being done here, but nothing okay. Live.
Maybe Jakob Söderqvist was also somewhere around there, but okay, that's interesting. That's the first for the podcast, that facility, but it looks pretty cool. But yeah, braving the winter to talk about goal setting. That is what happens during the winter for all the pro teams, and the managers of those teams is setting goals for each cyclist. But it's not just an easy topic. We're going to get into whether all cyclists should have a goal, what they look like, when they set them, are there multiple goals throughout the year? And I think the first question I have, Aike, is should all cyclists have a goal? Do you set a goal for every cyclist on your roster during this November planning?
Yes, but you do it on different levels. First of all, you have the reference sport directors, the personal coaches of the riders. I think they are more into the smaller goals, towards routines, habits, things in the way of working you want to change. And on the higher level, when it gets more strategical, you point out more the goals towards certain periods of top shape or certain results or certain races.
And so are you setting a mixture of goals with the riders? Is it like a big result goal that you have with each rider, or is that not appropriate for certain riders? Like for Bini, for example, very obvious, you're going to have a win X result goal, but what do you have with all the riders? Is it a mixture of things?
No, it's a mix, because for example, Louis Meintjes, it's easy. You want to do a top 10 in a Grand Tour. You have to decide on which Grand Tour. And then you have a couple of side goals that are maybe the easy goal settings. With Biniam, it's often the classic period. You want to hit that. And it's, of course, you see there maybe the 100% chances among the classics. And maybe you have then also the 90 or 80% chances. But you are more focused on a certain period. And then in the support riders, I think it's more general. You want to reach a certain level. And how do you do that? And then you break it down into certain goals, certain things you want to work on.
Okay, and when does that goal setting actually takes place? If you're talking about like next season, is that something you already sit down in July the year before, or when does that actually happen?
It depends a bit. If it's a new rider, I already talk about a plan with the new rider when we're in talks for the next season. To already share the expectations. It doesn't automatically mean that I say, I don't know, if I want to sign Rui Costa, you have to win that race or that race, but I point out which periods and type of races I think are important for him and that we want to target. So that is already, we touch the first time. Then before the first team meeting, normally end of October, that's when it gets more serious. That's when we present a first draft of a plan. That's already where we also hit on certain goals towards periodization. But then again, we already touched the subjects of, okay, but where do we want to go? What do we need to do this winter, in the spring, to reach these goals? And that is that we work out even more so in December. And depending on how urgent that is, let's say we want to make Dries de Poter lighter because we think he's more a rider for the Ardennes than for the Flemish Classics, hypothetically. Then you already maybe start in the October meeting already making a plan, and it starts already quite early because you want to involve the nutritionist, the medical team, and you want to make those steps. If it's about working together as a lead out and you want to include Huub Aerts in the lead out train of Gerben Thijssen, then it's something that you work on after December when you start training together and when the races are coming closer.
Yeah. But when you set a goal like that, say a weight goal, which, that can be a tricky subject as well, do you set the goal with, I'm also personally interested in this because I want to be at this weight, I want to lose this weight, and I think, is it not better to set a performance behavior goal of, I got to track my food on 80% of the days? So how do you do it? Do you set, is it both, particularly when something with weight, or do you just say, no, you're going to hit this weight by this day?
I would say it's 90% about habits, routines, way of working, if it comes to nutrition. And it's 10% where do you want to be at a certain time. Because you work in a plan. It's exactly what you say. It's a tricky subject. And it's much more about habits and routines. And that will also tell you when that process is going, how close you're going to get. But that's also not written in stone because you cannot touch the extremes too much with that. You cannot say suddenly you go 3 kilos lighter and we see what it gives. You have certain steps. Maybe you will first want to see how it goes with 1 kilo less. And you also that can also not be the centerpiece of the whole winter preparation because that will put too much focus on it. And there are so many other things that somebody needs to tackle to make that work. So I think it's like I said, 90% a plan with certain routines, habits, way of working.
Okay, but what you're saying, it's not written down in stone, but is it actually like written down, or does it always stay like on a conversational level and then it kind of like dilutes in other areas, or is there like a document at the beginning of the season, like, okay, these are really the goals, or something else what you work with?
Yes, we have a performance plan. That performance plan has individual year plans, and in those year plans we have, for example, for nutrition, the planning. We have the planning on the racing schedule. We have the training, general red line in that. So that's where we connect some of the dots. And it is a bit, I mean, if you talk about habits, it's not something you write in a year plan. That is the conversation you have. But if you want to be in April in your peak weight, and it's a difficult one for you, you cannot maintain it 3 months. So then the goal is maybe the 3 weeks in April when it counts, when the weather is suitable for that, and you have the right steps before that. So it goes gradual, and it's not making you sick suddenly because you drop 2 kilos in 1 week and you get all the side effects from that.
Yeah, I get it. So, but first, like when those goals are set or like shaped, basically, because you're also responsible for like the races and the season planning, I think you have that conversation with a rider, or is like the whole team already there, like the nutritionist, the coach, the medical staff, or is it only in the beginning just you and the rider, or who's involved there in the first process of shaping the goals?
I mean, the big red line is my plan, the performance. Where do we want to target? Which races do we want to target? That has a couple of consequences, and together with the personal coach or the reference sport director, You touch the subjects where you think action is needed. So if it's about the weight, okay, then you discuss with the nutritionist. Okay, we have attention for that, and it can also be the other way. Somebody that's very extreme has been too light, which causes lack of power, have loss of power, and the rider is more sick. You maybe want to go move it the other way, but so then you reach out to the nutritionist and you work together. So that is the big red line is set out by me. And I do that, of course, with the people. I mean, it doesn't make sense if I put a rider in a den races who has nothing to do there. So that is something you do together, and then you split the work among the different expertises.
And how do you deal with when your ideas of what maybe a goal should be for a rider and what would benefit the team differs from the rider's goals and expectations of themselves? Like, now if Louis Manche's goal is to top 5 at Grand Tour and your goal is for him to top 10, it really makes no difference because he's still going to go to the Grand Tour and try and do GC. It's not a problem. But how do you manage when a rider, like you say, thinks they should be, a shadow leader in the Tour of Flanders, and you think they should just be their role is to do a lead out in the UAE Tour and Scheldeprijs?
Or let's say like Louis Manches want to win Paris-Roubaix next year, and you have a conversation with him about that plan.
But if you to be honest, if you're on that side of the spectrum, like I said, then you already missed a couple of conversations, and that already starts with signing the rider. I mean, that is, like I said, one of the reasons why I come with the plan to a rider if you want to sign one is to avoid this. And there's not a lot of teams that do that. They start making the plans when you have the rider. I work the other way, so I can prevent this kind of mismatches. But the more difficult ones is the ones I think you refer to, is when riders making faster steps. They get better results. They suddenly make the finals instead of the pre-finals, and then the expectations start to shift. Which, to be honest, when you have a leader like Biniam Girmay for the classics, it's already a bit easier because it's clear. But when you have 4 guys and they are not so much different, then it gets really tricky. But that is really a build-up. You know, you have to make when you set goals, you want to have realistic goals, and of course, also they can be exceeded. But you have to be clear in that conversation. That is why we already come with a clear plan, a first draft of the plan in the first team meeting. Because if you lose that appointment, you're going to be talking in December. Then you're 6-7 weeks before the race starts. Then you already lose 1/3 of the team going to Australia. Then you have 2/3 of the team with you in January. There's not a lot of face-to-face conversations in between that. So it is for every team different. I like to work really advanced. We come with a plan. Everybody can shoot on that. The rider can give input. And I would say that out of the 28 riders, we maybe end up with 2 or 3 riders where it's a bit of a mismatch. And I think we filtered out already 70% in the whole build-up before, from the moment we talk to try to get the rider into the team and follow that development. But in the end, it comes down, if it's really a mismatch, about you have to sit down and be adults both and have to say, okay, this is the team, this is the ship, this is the 28 riders plus the staff. That's to go in the right direction. That's in the end always the priority. You try to find common ground, but in the end, you have to make a decision. And if it's really difficult, that decision is on my plate.
And how many absolute A goals, which you would say, for Binny is the classics, would you set is realistic to set for a rider each year? And this is also relevant to people that do Ironman, that do criteriums, that do Grand Fondos. Yeah, how many is realistic to set? Is it 1 mentally? Is it 2? Could you actually, and there's also a bit physiology, how many can you realistically set as A goals?
I would say if you look at the results on the result side, I would say in cycling between 1 and 3. You want to win 1 or 2 type of races. You want to improve, let's say, your time trial skills, and you want to do your first top 20 in a World Tour time trial, and you want to finish a Grand Tour. I mean, that I would say in that radius, it's realistic that you're not making it too complicated. You can combine the goals. Underneath, I would say that's where the more important stuff happens, and that is what do I need to change daily, weekly, to make the next step in my development? Is it I need to get on a healthier food plan, nutritional plan? Is it my sleeping habits that need to change? I think on that level, if you ask me personally, if I see the biggest progress of my riders in the team is often in those areas where you really change your behavior, when somebody really is already more focused from, let's say, end of November, and really have been able to reorganize their life, the way they organize their lives, in a way that it's really training, resting, and not go after 6 hour training to puppy training and stand there in the rain weather outside. And it's laughable. And it's the same for the appointment at the bank. Do you do it directly an hour? Do you at 3 o'clock and you have to cut your training short? Yeah, you not have time to eat, or you do it in the evening when you've done your nap, you eat, and then you do it. That is when you really get to the elite top sport level, and that is what I talk with my riders a lot about, because that is where I can see absolutely the most progression with the riders. If you change your routines, if you change your habits, that then goals and development are coming a lot closer.
Is it then also that, I don't know if you work like that, but let's say there are these 1 to 3 like A goals, like races of periods, and then those more like process goals, habit goals, changing whatever behavior. Does that also has like a limit? Like if you want to focus, like I can imagine if you want to focus on changing a certain behavior, you don't want like maybe 20 attention points, because that probably doesn't work on a daily basis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, for sure. And that is also a little bit timeline based. I think October, November, December, January, February, you're much more into the routines and habits, because that's when you build the base. When you start, when it starts to get exciting and the racing starts, you're more focused on the other goals. And actually, you should pass the moment when you have to think about the routines. They should already be in. It should not be the thing that drives you. And then you don't want to overfeed the rider with working on different or new routines or anything. So, but there again, it's better to set the 2-3 quality ones that you can really follow up and do them good, than to set 10 and lose yourself in all these little details. And that is with cycling, triathlon. It gets very fast complicated because there's so many boxes to tick. So you have to be really specific. And often it's on the basic things where the biggest game changers are. Being able to sleep 5 hours in the week more, having a better balance, having a better recovery meal, having the good routines that you make a good recovery meal, maybe in the morning, that you can have directly after training, so you don't lose time. You stand there in your wet sweatshirt cooking. All these kind of small things are often the bigger game changers than only talk about 2 kilos you want to lose. Yeah, but there is one aspect you should not forget, is that we get the riders very young. When Francesco Busatto comes into the team, or Alexis Faure-Prost, these guys are 19 years old. They maybe just finished school. They maybe just moved out of their house for the first time. They are still, becoming adults. So it is you really, with those guys, you're much more, of course, on that level, and that is where I think we have been very successful in helping these guys, supporting these guys, giving the attention, having the transition from coming into the Devo team, from the Devo team transitioning into the World Tour team. That takes a lot of time, and progress there is not always measured in results. It's much more measured in how they set up their lives, and so there you're more on that side rather than pointing out the results. Where maybe Gijs van Hoek, who's 32 years old, who's already been 10 years pro. There you said it. You want to challenge him. You want, I don't know, 5 wins with Gerben Thijs and 5 winning leadouts, and you want to have a certain way of working, and you want him to have a certain level to, when he does against Wevelgem, that he's still there after 200k and dropping the guys off on the gravel sectors.
How do you? Because it's very easy to say with a result like, did you top 10 the tour? Yes or no. You just see it on. You don't need to evaluate whether it happened. How do you monitor those layer below performance goals and and how do you evaluate whether you succeeded or not with them?
And now I'm going to say a bit something controversial. To be honest, if it's about results, I don't talk about the results that much. I have a sheet of the things we want to achieve as a team, for sure, that I can revert to. But for me,
what's on the sheet? But there are results, right, or points or something?
Yeah, the team goals. And that
Okay.
it can be top 10 in the Grand Tour. It can be, I don't know,
Yeah, exactly.
a certain placing on the UCI ranking, so many victories. But that is as a result focus as it gets from me. For me, it's much more about hitting the periods. If you want to win a classic, if that's the goal that we should set out in the winter for Biniam, everything from when we start working, the winter training starts, is about that work. Because I don't have to remind in February Biniam that he still has to win a classic in March. That is not how I work. And it's also, for me, not the deciding factor whether I think we failed or not. 22, he had a magnificent year. 23 was a very difficult. 24 was about getting back into the classics and riding for the victory. He crashed. He had won 7th place, and he had a hunger flat with the cold weather in E3. Can we then say he failed? No, we got him back to the level, but it didn't give a result. Am I then disappointed? No, because I think the biggest achievement was that we got him back on the right level. And then I don't think I have to bring in the negative energy that to revert the whole time. Yeah, but we didn't win a classic, or remember we have to win the classic. That is, I try to avoid those conversations. I never enter a team bus saying we want to win today. That you talk about the end result. You have to talk about how we work and how we do it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the controversial part in it, because we like goal setting, but to be honest, in the way of working, it's much more about how we do it, how we have to achieve it, how can we get them to the highest level. And I don't think, for example, we with Biniam, we know last year we raced the openings weekend. Always a bit tricky in the planning because it's cold weather, it's bad weather, it's not so good. We planned a week of training in Spain with this trainer there, and it was an add-on because we feel, okay, that week is very important. You do the openings weekend, which is first weekend of racing, and then you want a good training week there. So we put everything in place. For me, I talk with Biniam or Dimitri, who works also a lot with him. It's much more about everything around that for that week. As soon as the 2 races are done, and before that, the planning about transfer, vision, hotel. When do we train? Do we go directly on Monday after an early flight? Do we directly start training, or do we give him a couple of hours to these kind of things that's what we talk about. And I think that is then much more important. We should building up towards Milan-San Remo, which maybe is the first appointment, and then you have the 3.5 weeks or 4 weeks that he has to be on his top level. But to refer the whole time to the results, the result goal, I don't think that's not my style, at least.
Well, I think it's actually not that controversial. It's actually it makes a lot of sense. So you actually talk a lot about process goals. Like, you're not talking about today we're going to win this race. You talk about how can we actually win this race today. But I do have a question about that, because I can also imagine that a rider itself, they go along with your story, but in the end, a guy also like Bini, he just wants to win the race. He knows that there is a process involved and everyone in the team has to play their part, but in the end, he actually wants to ace, that tour stage, for example. So, how important is that part, for example, in setting a goal? You know what I mean? So you, for example, you want someone really good in this classic period, but at the same time, maybe Bini is, for example, dreaming about Flanders. He wants to win Flanders, and he knows in order to do so, I need to be in top shape for like the entire period. But in his mind, already in November, December, he's dreaming about Flanders, right? Do you take that into account in setting those goals?
Yeah, because I think the key factor is in goal setting is that it's also realistic. The balance between a realistic goal and a challenging goal, it needs to push you every day to do the right things. But in the same time, it has to be realistic, because when you start to feel, I'm not yet on that level, and in E3 prize I have 20 guys in front of me on the Patersberg, and I cannot pass them, and I cannot make up for that. And 8 days later is Tour de France, it's going to be difficult. So there is the really fine tuning. It has to be in a realistic way, and it has to be on the same challenging. And of course, that is also what you have to do with the group. And I think the key thing when you're a team is that if you talk about a performance team, that is where it has to be clear with each other. How do we talk about it? And for some riders, it's good to speak a lot about it, but for the others, it's on the high end of almost being unrealistic, and it adds pressure. Then you want to stay away from the process, and that is where I think the personal coach or the trainer comes in, because they talk on a daily basis. They feel whether it adds too much pressure to have it here the whole time. And for others, it needs to be more often here. It needs to be discussed, because that is what gets them going to think about, that is what we need to achieve. That's why I'm doing it. But everybody's a bit different in that. But it has to be realistic, and it has to definitely have the challenge. It has to push you to do something, to reach for something that you haven't done yet, I think.
And how do you deal with adversity with goals? So Bini, for example, he's a great example. Goes to the Giro this year. He looked good, third in the first sprint, then crashes twice, and he's out. And I presume don't need to be a rocket science that the Giro was a big goal. How did you? I don't know if he was planned to do the Giro to a double or not, but how did you set new goals? Did you even set new goals, or did you just? Was it straight afterwards you said, hey, let's go to the Tour and set a new goal? Did you give him a week to cool off? Because there's also, people are going to have disappointments in their own personal racing. How long should you wait to set a new goal? Or should you just get straight back into it?
The Tour de France was always on the plan.
Ah, okay.
What we really changed, and I think that was also a nice example. He crashes out. The first 2 days, we were not sure if he had broken something in his hip. So the first 2 days we said, okay, we'll not do anything yet until we are 100% sure you're good to go again. But in those 2 days, Biniam was very clear. I'm sitting here with top shape. I feel super strong. I already should have won one of these stages here. When nothing is broken, I want to go again. So I already had a backup program with a couple of one-day races. And when we got the green light from doctors after the second scan, we directly moved on and actually made that period, because he was supposed to race just to the Giro, then stop, and then prepare for the Tour. We actually made that week a bit longer. We added the Brussels Classics, which was a week later. After the Giro, so we added that, and that's where we also got back on the results again, because he was in a really good. He had a super good level, so he was, there you could really see he was so ambitious. He really wanted to directly race again, because he wanted to win races. And when he got that win in Franco-Belge, he got already more calm. Then we missed the victory in Brussels Classics. He went home after that, 3-4 weeks to train in Eritrea, and he come back. Yeah, zen. He was ready to go for the tour. And the first 2 days, we said already, okay, we will need a couple of days to get going. But after the 2 days, he said in Italy, where it was really hard, it was really hot. On the morning of the first sprint days, he said, I have not suffered yet. I feel really good. So, yeah. But then again, that was really 48 hours waiting and having a plan A and a plan B. And he had the motivation to directly go again. And changed.
How would you deal with it if he was demoralized? Because it sounds almost like, you were two people aligned on the same parallel path. You wanted him to be good at the tour. He was ready to go to the tour. What if he was demoralized, or an athlete? How do you go about setting a new goal when they've just had a really disappointing setback?
You need to take the conversation on the right moment. That does have to be clear, because you can step in the team bus right after we come back after that stage when he got out, but you're not going to get anything sensible out of those conversations. Things need to calm down. Let's say 48 hours, 2-3 days, and then you need to have to look at what are the options, what are the consequences if we stop now, and just sit with this disappointment, let it heal, and then build up to the next period. What do we have left in the tank? I mean, if it's because of a lack of shape, if you're a disappointment because you have a lack of shape, it makes a lot less sense to then push directly onto the next goal. Then you maybe have to reset, rethink what went wrong, what do we miss, bad luck or not. But then you can start replanning. So one hand, you look together, why are we here? And secondly, you then have to also look, with Biniam, his level was good. He was himself super motivated. If a rider is really disappointed and he doesn't have the level at that moment, then it's really better to reset it. If it's because, I don't know, he cannot, react bad on the cold weather, but the level is there, he missed a good result because, external circumstances, I think then you can have a really good conversation pushing on that moment. But it's from case to case different. But you need to have an honest conversation about the motivation, what's there. And you also need to understand when you talk about it. Like I said, the first 24 hours, it's always difficult to get the good answers, because, and that's maybe also the question that you need to ask the rider, when do we want to make the decision? Are we comfortable making this decision now? Are you comfortable with having the conversation now? Or is it better to first go home, relax one day, accept the facts, come to terms with it, and then have a proper conversation? But that is a rider per situation different.
And sorry, go on, Jim.
Yeah, sorry. Not to make it an entire Biniam Girmay show, but I'm kind of wondering here, how much, because last year was great. It was that's almost an impossible season to beat. I mean, he was back in the classics. What you said, he crashed in the Giro, but he was back there in basically the first sprint. But is there what is then the biggest difference compared to 23? Is there, or to put it differently, is goal setting there? Was it different in 24, for example, for him, and did it help him in some way?
I think if you want to point out where I think in 23 you have all the external situations, the pressure, the things, but we also have to be honest, and it's not only our responsibility. The goals were very result focused. We want to win, we want to win, we want to win a stage in the tour now, we want to win this, we want to win this. There was a lot of talking about that, and I don't say necessarily that we talked about it a lot, but everything around it. It was because it was so historical. It got an extra load, and the focus was too much about writing history, while we're losing our energy on that area, and we're forgetting that he needs to train the week before the Tirreno. And when he gives other things too much priority, and he doesn't have his planning straight, and the sport director on that race isn't following up what he's doing, we suddenly lose an important week where we cannot lose an hour of training in a good way, not even an hour of recovery. And when you then drive 3 hours in your car to meet some friends and go back, you miss. That's not what Mathieu van der Poel is doing. That's not what Wout van Aert is doing. So there you can say 23 was, the goal setting was maybe realistic, but it was maybe too much about results and too less energy of everybody going into how. That is something we completely changed and overhauled. And we went much more into details about his training. We talked about it before, about how we set up his winter training, make it also more visual and clear to him what he needs to do. Set in when we saw that, the week before the Tirreno, when he organized himself, it didn't went so well, then we have to organize it, And it also gave him a much better feeling because it was organized, his trainer was there. Every hour, every trainer, every training, every nap, every meal was spot on. Then you get to that level where you can dream about the results and the win again, and you can talk about that. So I think that is maybe a good red line in what maybe got too much attention and focus in 23. And in 24, the whole approach could fly a little bit more on the radar, and we could simply stick to the basic things that really matter and make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting part here that we're touching now, because it's not only about like the goal that you set with a rider, it's also all that external pressure or attention, or even as a rider, as for Biniam and Girmay, if you would say him on a daily basis, let's focus on the process. As a rider, you often like dream about winning that Tour de France stage. So it's I think your job is, and you did a great job there in 24, is to keep him focused on that process. And I can imagine that's so difficult. That's basically telling that on a daily basis. Otherwise, if you want it or not, you get distracted by these more result orientated goals.
Yeah, and also result-orientated behavior, talking. It shifts the focus away, and I think also everybody is different in that, but it's really that is where the focus and the conversation should be focused around. And like I said, that's also why I try to stay away a bit from talking too much about the results, because if you take, for example, lead outs. That's also very much process work, And in the end, maybe the best lead out doesn't give you the victory because, in the last 200 meters, you have him in the right position, on the right side of the road. Everything goes well, but the other guy is simply faster. Should I then be the disappointed performance manager sitting in the bus? Okay, I'm disappointed because we didn't win. Believe me, I want to win races. My conversation is there much more about, guys, what did we do right? Those things you want to talk about, and I think that's for everybody. If you set yourself a time for the Marmot or the Roubaix Cyclo Sportif, or you also need to think about what it do with you. If you set that goal and you want to go in your training group and say, "Hey guys, I'm going to do Paris-Roubaix under 7 hours." Think also about if that is if that's the stress and the pressure you need, or if it's just something that can turn negative towards you, and that is something you have to find out for yourself. If you make it a training related goal and you want to have so many hours, I think that is already be easier to be vocal about. Because if you're in a training group and you say, "Listen, guys, I want to make 20 hours this week." They maybe even help you and say, "Okay, then we do another 4. We do tomorrow 4 hours, and we start an hour earlier, and then we help you get that goal, and I get an extra hour also." Then it helps you.
Yeah.
But you have to be, if it comes to these performance type of goals, you also have to be able to think how much can you handle it, and when is it a negative influence?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's actually. Yeah,
So
sorry.
I would say for Biniam that is harder, and for a professional cyclist, because it's everybody around it, the media that sets this landscape also about how much pressure is added and how much time he has to talk about it. When you, of course, are a private person that makes a goal and you are not a professional athlete, you have it better under control yourself normally.
Yeah, but I do think, and that's really interesting. I actually think that's what I really like about sports. That also, like this amateur cyclist, a lot of this goal setting then points towards, for example, a time in a marmot. And instead of like, okay, let's break it down to what kind of task do I need to do to be able to get, I don't know, below 8 hours on a marmot. And a lot of people are like forgetting that part and then only focusing on that end result. And that's basically, so goal setting on a seasonal goal setting is like on a macro level, the same as on a micro level as a lead out in a race. The whole dynamic is basically the same. It's about when you, and there's actually scientific evidence for that as well. Once athletes start to focus on the end result instead of like getting certain tasks done, then everything goes to shit, basically. So you need to keep your focus on those tasks. And that's basically the same during a season. If you start focusing on the process and on the task, how to get there, and keep actually the result as far away as possible, that's just the logical outcome of what you do. And don't be bothered by that. That probably gets you the best result. But of course, we're all human.
It's almost easier for amateurs. I mean, it's harder in that you probably have a job, maybe a family, you've got like real life pressures, and you don't have a team of support people around you. But yeah, when you have a result goal to win a Tour de France stage, there's so many things that can go wrong. Crash, just another rider turns out to be, Tadej Pogacar decides to win that day. But if you're an amateur and you set a time-based goal, I want to do Marmot in this time. Or for me at the moment, like I'm trying to do a 5K faster. It's a time-based goal. You can just break it down into its constituent components. And I'm like, for every kilo I lose, my 5K time will go down by 14 seconds. So without even doing anything per se.
Yeah, but I'm thinking I'm not sure if it's necessarily easier for a pro than for an amateur. It's just different, you know. It should be easier for a pro to just build that certain sleep and eat routine and recovery routine than, for example, for an average Joe, because you know your kids get sick or you stress at work or whatever, and then you need to can I still commit to whatever plan I have in getting, for example, the training volume in on a weekly basis.
But that's why for those people, the weekly or the monthly goal setting and how you want to work and how much you want to work for it or train is often the right way. And then you are in the process. You think about, okay, if I want to reach this time, I have to do a certain amount of work, and I want to schedule that in a certain way. And when you hit those weeks and months, and you can follow that plan in a good way, you can leave that goal on the scoreboard. The moment that because your kids are sick or you have too much to do with work, when you start to see that you are losing training time, you're losing your sleep, or you start to lose on those details, then you have to maybe reset the goal and create realistic goals. But I think it's much more practical and much more realistic for people to go into a week and say, I want to hit 10 hours. And if I want to be as close as possible to my goal, I have to figure it out this week and have all these factors in place to have the 10 hours. And if there your attention and action goes to, then at the end you're much closer to the goal. So I think that is absolutely the right way, and that is also, I think, where the success is made on the professional level and also on the amateur level.
Yeah, for sure. And that's also an important part. Like out of practical like circumstances, you talk with riders already in November about the Tour de France. But I think like for average like amateur cyclists, it's not that important to set like a goal that's like 10 months away or 12 months away from now, you know? I think for a lot of amateur cyclists, it's way more important, and also to make it way more feasible is like, okay, I want to do this in 3 months from now, and then set those weekly and monthly goals towards it. And in the back of your mind, always know that, real progress comes from consistency. So after those 3 months, you would need a new goal. You should like recalibrate, set your new monthly, weekly, process goals. And of course, keep on like motivating yourself, working towards those, for example, fondos, or it can be hitting a certain power number, but always breaking it down in really, not necessarily easy, but in process goals, changing your behavior, building habits, and then reaching those goals. I think then
I think, Jim, you also touch another very important part of it. Once you have your race event, it's also really important to think, what do you do after? With success or without success? Because we referred to the Giro story with Biniam. What do? Do you reset? Because I mean, I think especially when you have a 40-hour job and you have kids and you have to manage all these goals, and for 3 months you're on the limit, making the hours and the training and the nutrition, and you put, everybody in the family or at work is also, maybe they don't realize, but they're also involved in this whole stress or pressure. It's also really important to realize, okay, what do I do now? Because maybe it's good now to really take the pressure off, to reset, find the energy, and build up again. Quite often people keep pushing then. They think, oh, I'm now on a good level. I take this goal, I take, next week there's another one. And then the next week is another one. But you maybe don't realize how much stress and how much pressure you put already on your surroundings and on yourself as well. Because the longer you keep going, when you have that top shape or that level, the longer you're going, the more time you eat away normally from your next realistic goal. So you always have to look also towards that. The longer you keep going, maybe the more time you eat away from having the good time to properly prepare for the next one. So that's really something you have to be wise in, and don't make it 5 minutes after you reach your goal. Don't make that decision there. Do it after a good meal the next day, and then calibrate with your surroundings.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice at the end, Aike. You answered my last questions without me having to ask them, which is relating it back to amateurs. But that's really, really good to have. So sometimes I'm a little bit the other way, which is that I do a goal and then I can almost relax too much, and be like, I put the bike away. But again, I don't. It also depends on your situation. I don't have kids yet, so sometimes it doesn't take too much out of me to build up for that. I also have a pretty unusual job, I would say. But yeah, certainly when I was working full time, I remember just basically just being like, well, how many hours can I do this week? What's realistic? 8? All right. 8's good enough. Sort of kept me going, and then do a few criteriums. And then, would have to take a break. Oh, sorry, Jim.
Yeah, sorry, but I do think like as for amateur cyclists that like the situation you're just describing, you don't necessarily like always need goals to keep on like having an active lifestyle, but you might be missing out on a very powerful tool. And I think that's the interesting part of this whole goal setting conversation that we're having. Like it can be such a powerful thing, but you need to use it wisely, basically. And that's like on every level.
Negative. Yeah,
exactly.
It can turn very quickly negative, and that is what you don't want, because you have a component in your life that takes time. And let's be fair, it should also give you energy. You want to train, you want to feel good about your week, and it doesn't necessarily always mean that the week exactly has to go as you plan. Because there are always factors that you cannot manage. You solve it. You maybe lose an hour here or there. Maybe if we talk about weight, you say, if I knock 1 kilo off, that's going to give me that advantage. But that's maybe not every week the same. But you can, in the end, you also have to question, and that sometimes also I say to the team before a race, do we have any regrets about how we work now? We are here now. We're going to start the tour. Do we have any regrets? And of course, when we have missed a recon or we had a disastrous altitude camp, is maybe not the right thing to say. But when you feel that you're ready, when you've ticked all the boxes, that's also something you can say. You have to say to yourself, okay, I've done everything. This is what I've done. Realistically, I'm pretty much on schedule. I keep the goal. I go for it. You missed out on something. You're not yet there where you are. Be honest to yourself and say, okay, listen, that was the dream, but I take it down a notch and try to do that. Then I achieve that goal with what I've done. It can still give me a good feeling. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Aike, for your time. That was really, really interesting, and certainly a lot for me to take away. As someone who never really sets performance, like lifestyle or performance-based goals. That's a really, I think, powerful message. And given that so much of your focus and been part of your success with the team the last few years, that particularly this year with Bini, that's a really important takeaway. So thanks for coming on the pod and for your time, and good luck with the holiday coming up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, man.
Key takeaways for me from the goal setting interview with Aike Visbeek. Number one, maybe just the main one for me, Jim, was setting non-result related goals, particularly for performance lifestyle. And I'm not saying I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to do 20 hours training a week. I'm going to eat nutrition like a pro. It's just not realistic. But having actual performance lifestyle related goals, which are like, I also think they're like bite-sized achievable ones. 8 hours this week. I have a goal this week. I can achieve that. Or I have to eat 80% of my food in the house. Let's say I can achieve that, and it's here right now for me to do.
Is that a personal rule for you? What you're now referring to?
I just made it up, but it might be a good one. I think it'd be a good one for me to do.
No, but it was. I think it was also the first podcast about goal setting that we didn't introduce smart goal setting. So that's also an achievement in itself that we didn't have to go there. Although we kind of like tackled all the parts of it. And yeah, I totally agree. Like the and it's also something that you know by heart, but sometimes you need to realize it again. Like it's so important to have these process goals instead of these result orientated goals, and actually breaking that result down in the tasks that you need to do on a weekly, on a monthly basis. The importance of that, I think that's been discussed and explained actually by Aike really nicely.
Yeah, and that's the building blocks approach, that you just got to build foundational blocks of good training, good habits together, and perfection's impossible, but actually just improving it a few percent. For the pros, it's like they got to improve their recovery 2-3%. Probably for amateurs, you can take your nutrition from the 50th percentile to the 75th percentile. Still not perfect, but still a huge gain, which probably isn't available to the pros. And if I guess if a goal can help you get there, then that's the way to go forward. And that's something I'm gonna look at this week, actually.
You're actually. I mean, we haven't discussed that, but I mean, just to maybe conclude with that, that's a really important remark that you're just making. There are also a lot of people that think like once they set also these process goals that they're aiming at 100% perfection, which is actually for most of us not anywhere near where we need to go. If we can just get like from, I don't know, 50% perfection up until like 60% perfection, we're already making huge gains. And I think that's also really important in setting these process goals. Don't try to aim for perfection, but aim for improvement. And don't be too hard on yourself there. Don't beat you up with it.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that 80% of the food in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
That gives me a lot of leeway.
It's actually, I think it's a pretty good one. I'm not sure if I will.
Coffees don't count.
Course.
Coffees don't count.
Okay, coffees don't count? Yeah, is it okay? Well,
especially when I'm in Australia. All right. Thanks for listening. As always, if you want to see the list of other episodes, go and check out the link to Join's landing page for the Masterclass series through the link down below. Thanks, Jim, as always, and we'll see you with the fourth one next week. Till then, ciao.